stepping into the most perfect creature you can become. And my job is to make sounds appear and movements, and your job is to let your karma connect with those sounds and movements and let your mind create some meaning and let your heart flow with that meaning. Yeah? So you actually have a bigger job than me. It's like, I've got to go blah, 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 and you've got to go, oh. Because then I'm not there when you continue. Yeah? So thank you for letting me do the blah, blah. And thank you for this. This is lovely. So if there's anybody here who hasn't been here before, we do a whole bunch of funny things, like doing that thing. We also do this funny thing. But the essence of all these things, any movement of speech or mind or body, is really, really and truly to connect with your motivation and your mind and your heart, and just try to relax your grip on reality and let the most magnificence of reality appear in front of you. So your motivation should be, may I use this experience to help all these other beings that are gripping onto reality like I normally do. And may we be free of the grip, because when you let go, you experience a magnificence that's beyond what you were holding. Yeah. So the first motivational thing is you offer a mandala, you offer the most perfect world to that thing inside of you which teaches you. It manifests outside of you as a teacher, as your friends, etc. But you imagine in your mind the most perfect world. Perfect. Everybody perfect. What is that? The closest you can get to it. Just don't beat yourself up about not creating a perfect world. Just the best perfect you can do. And then the next sounds we make is about this idea of taking refuge. For those of you who know that formally, you know what that is. For those of you who don't, you're probably going to do it better, because it's about understanding that the world keeps changing and you have some power to change it. You understand the nature of this changing world. If you understand how it functions, it can change to be magnificent. So,
Sashi
Puki Jishin Metokram Vira Vinci Yunde Himpadi Sange Shindu Nite Vivari Drahunanda Shinla Shukasho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami
Sange
Chudam Zoki Chognam La Jamchu Bardu Dakni Gyatsuchi Dagi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sange Drupasho
Sange
Chudam Soki Choknam La Jamchu Bardu Dakni Gyatsuchi Dagi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sange Drupasho
Sange
Chudam Soki Choknam La Jamchu Bardu Dakni Gyatsuchi Dagi Chenyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sange Drupasho.
Turn that light.
If you know how to meditate, we're going to do a very short meditation. We're going to just try and push our minds a little deeper now. So take a comfortable seated position, the best you can. The key here is your spine is straight And your breath is natural, so you're just breathing quite naturally. And just let your body be and let your breath come and go, and allow your mind to just begin to zone in with the breath, just the sensation of your breath entering and exiting through your nostril. Do a few rounds of that. See if you can press your mind against your breath as if you're experiencing the sensation of breath for the very first time. As if you don't know the subtleties of breath and this is your first experience of it exiting your nostril and entering. Focus on the temperature, on the movement. Focus on how far it stretches and how deep it goes. And then if you've ever had a teacher, if you've ever had, or you can imagine a most perfect being that can really guide you and teach you, or has taught you, bring them to mind now and see how well you can imagine them seated in front of you, facing you. Bring the whole presence of them here. Think of their greatest thing, the thing you revere about them the most, and feel some kind of gratitude that you can connect to that. And then think of the most magnificent thing you've experienced in the last week or so and offer it to them. Maybe it's meeting the Dalai Lama, I don't know, something like that. Yeah, it should be joyful. It should be meditating, frown. Yeah. And see if you can give them the most perfect gift and they enjoy it. They are happy with you. And now I'd like you to get some perspective about the entirety of your life. This thing you call you. Imagine you're watching it from a third person, maybe from above the room or above the building. And you can see the mind of this thing you call you. See if you can find their biggest obstacle to happiness. Maybe it's a pattern that was previously unseen to you. But from this third perspective and with your teacher by your side, it's very clear. Whatever that obstacle is, it's changeable, it can end. So see if you can generate some kind of wish to stop that habit or that state of mind. And have some confidence that you'll be able to over time. imagine that person that you call you free from that obstacle. And imagine a burden gone, never to return. And then consider that person you call you from the third party perspective and see their greatest gift, the most beautiful thing about them. Maybe it's the way you think, maybe it's what you do. Maybe it's how you love. Maybe it's just a wish to improve. See if you can feel some deep joy about having that quality and using that quality to improve the world around you. See the knock-on effects of that goodness like dominoes in your world. And don't hold back, just enjoy being happy. It's as simple as that sometimes. And then from your heart, ask your teacher to please always teach you, show you new ways. Regardless the circumstance, may you hear their song, their wisdom, and ask them to always stay close. And as you ask them, like a magnet, they turn to face the same direction you're facing, getting smaller and floating up to the crown of your head. Smaller and brighter. See if you can feel them just above the crown. Their full potential, all their knowledge, all their wisdom, and everything they represent. Available to you instantly. Always. Before you come to, see if you can generate some kind of the wish to be free from suffering, whatever that suffering is for you, for the sake of all the people in your world. See if you can generate some want, a healthy want, to figure out the code that makes you truly happy, free from the ups and downs of this world, so you can really help the people that need you, that you love, the people you see on the planet. Most importantly, think it's possible. And when you're ready, you can come. Open your eyes. Hi. Happy birthday. Everyone's having birthdays, by the way. That one's having a birthday, that one's had a birthday, that one's having a birthday. Anyone else having a birthday?
Not for a couple of months.
That one's having a birthday.
I'm having a birthday.
Yeah. And I don't know if everyone got this.
No, I woke up with this in front of me just now.
That's nice.
Hector's birthday present was getting touched by the Dalai Lama. And now it's on her altar.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, it's so lovely.
Hector, we were saying the Dalai Lama's passing around a picture showing all his friends, you.
I was telling Bill, I thought it was non-violence, but this slap really hurt. You know, like really.
So I think we should sing Hector happy birthday.
Can we do it in the class?
No.
Okay.
In 3-part harmony.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'm jumping out of the cake.
Just what I wanted.
I'm jumping out of the cake.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. Sorry for the short birthday interruption, apparently. But while am I waiting for something? Are you, yeah?
Yeah, the cake.
The cake is coming?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Peter the cake.
So we started on the ACI 7 class, right? On this idea of bodhisattvas and bodhicitta. And it's really a beautiful thing to try and do with a human life. To try and say, I am here in this collection of 7 billion humans, and then imaginable, uncountable other sentients, let alone the historical ones that have come in and out of existence here. And there is something to touch that can free you from the bounds of what we call a cyclic suffering life. And the key are these bounds. Yeah, the keys are what we're studying as these bounds. And when I have to confess, when I first heard this, I wanted to run the opposite direction for 9 years, which I did for 10. Yeah. These are the most exquisite, beautiful things that aren't what they seem when you first see them. So I want to give you a taste of what it would be like to really have this wish, to develop a wish that is uncontrived. It comes from you. That requires some training. And the running wheels, the training wheels, is actually learning them and cognizing them and seeing. The first thing I realized when I learned these vows is how much I don't have them. How much I've got the opposite of them. How selfish I am and how self-interested I am. And that feels revolting. That helps you figure out how not to be like that. Like, it's a lovely mirror, yeah? So I have a friend, his name is Simon, and he's not a Buddhist or anything like this, but there are people on the planet that touch this feeling, yeah? And Simon's one of these people that has had a similar feeling to bodhicitta, wants to be free. Just like all the people who have been kind enough to write these things down, experiment with these vows, put them into practice, have realizations, and it is the only reason we're sitting in this room. So as Tsongkhapa says, bless me to see clearly that that wish is not enough. Yeah? Because if I'm not training the 3 moralities, meaning stop harming people, start taking care of people, and then think about all the people, the 3 moralities. Do acts for the sake of more than yourself. If I'm not training those 3, I can't become a Buddha, I can't become enlightened, I can't wake up. Which means I'm going to continue having to go through this cycle. And whether or not you think of past and future lives as true, the cycle, you at least have it for this life. If you've got some kind of insight or research or so on, you understand that this thing, this fleeting thing we call mind, doesn't stop because the body ends. You're not the body, you want this body to start with. So he says, I can't become a Buddha, so please grant me, somebody please bless me, that I will have a fierce resolve, that I will really try hard to master these vows, the vows of the victors, the children of the victors. Master these vows. So this Simon guy wrote this song. So I want you to hear the song, because it's from a non-Buddhist, and there is a stage of being human where you spontaneously have this, mothers have this, and for their children, but imagine that for everyone. So I want to start off by saying thank you to every single being that's ever taught us. Out of all the thousands of monks in Tibet and all the Indian pandits, we have a trickle of a few that have actually done something with it, and if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't sit here like this and talk. So I just want to honor them and say thanks to them, really, and then just see what it sounds like to. Maybe we can put that a little louder. And I'll turn off the Hector light. There we go. Enjoy. If it doesn't work, it's not because of me. No. Kill the light there.
Love and hate play tug of war. We are soldiers, one and all, marching in the battlefields of mind. Self-destruction will caress the sweet seduction of progress. We are the victims and villains of our time, and we paint the world with lies. They're the ones who laugh to pay, as history reads between the lines. All the meaning is swept away. I wanna fly like Superman, be the hero of the land, save the world with my bands. 'Cause I can hear the people cry through my window, watch them die, but I don't wanna stand by. History turns a page on us, the golden age of broken trust, betrayal of the deepest kind. Technology will veil the truth. A generation waits for proof that they are not running out of time. We throw our money into the sky, leave the world below to die. We are so generous with words, generous with lies. I wanna fly like Superman, be the hero of the land, save the world with my friends. 'Cause I can hear the people cry through my window, watch them die, but I don't wanna stand by. Throw our money into the sky, leave the world until it's dry. We are so generous with words, generous with lies. I wanna fly like Superman, be the hero of the land, save the world with my friends. 'Cause I can hear the people cry watching him.
Tricked you! Okay. So imagine having that in your heart all the time. Yeah. Like all those people did. Anybody that ever took a vow, a serious vow, like a tantric vow or anything, must have taken these Bodhisattva vows. And they are supposed to be magical, but you will have a yucky reaction at the beginning. That's good. That's cleaning your crap out. Yeah, that's how you move on. That's how you move forward. So it's interesting. Those of you who went to His Holiness's teaching this weekend, he gave Bodhisattva vows. People had a tantric initiation, and you can't have one unless you have some Patimoksha vows and then some Bodhisattva vows. So he did. There you go. And so there's like thousands of people walking around New York that have these vows but don't know how to keep them, let alone know when to break them, yeah, or how they're breaking them. And in the next hour and a half, we're going to spend time thinking about how to be an educated Western Buddhist. And don't get stuck on the idea that this is the vow and etc. etc. Understand the logic behind the vow. Know what it is, but at some point you'll get so familiar with these beautiful things that you'll know the experience of living a vow, and you'll know the experience of coming close to breaking a vow. They're really hard to break, but if you didn't know that, you wouldn't know that by just the names of the vows. So it is, I hope that by the end of the class today, you get some taste of what it would be like to have this wish come spontaneously, like Simon's song. Yeah? I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to have. And it's progress. It's the only way between here and Buddha. At some point, in some incarnation, some form of these ideas must come alive in your heart. Good. So, first vow. I'll review the first four which we talked about last week. Any questions? Any things like that? No? Good. Here we go. Praising yourself and putting down other people. Mm-hmm. Your job also, if I can ask you, is how do these produce enlightenment? Like, you've got to think that. So don't think about them as restricting, because these are restricting behaviors that prevent you from enlightenment. But your job as a practitioner is to go, okay, Hector, thank you, or Lord Buddha, or whoever gave you the vows, thank you, drink it up, and then go, hold on, how will that turn on to enlightenment? How does this idea of not praising yourself and putting down other people help me turn my world into an enlightened state of being? You've got to think that way. So the first thing I needed to tell you, I told you last week, is that it really refers to this first vow refers to telling a lie. Yeah? So, and it's around having this gain, this desire for the respect and admiration of other people, or for some material gain. And the way it works, and you see this in vow 14.5, the way this one works is that you see somebody teaching a Mahayana path. This you wouldn't be able to tell from reading the name of the vow. Somebody's teaching a Mahayana path. What the hell does that mean in Western terms? You see somebody sharing information, teaching somebody about a path to enlightenment, a path, like a whole complete set of things that involves taking care of others. And you know that they're telling the truth, and you lie. You say, that's not true, he's a bad teacher, don't listen to him, follow me. Yeah? Putting down other people, praising yourself. That is the core of breaking this vow. Now, how do you get to that? How would you get to that? How does one get to that? You get that through the habit of putting down other people and praising yourself. Yeah? Now there is nothing wrong with seeing somebody telling other people information about a path or about a way out of suffering. There's nothing wrong with saying, hold on, I disagree with what you're saying. What you're saying will actually harm people. There's nothing wrong with saying that if that's true. But there's a respectful, true way to do that without breaking this vow. Does that make sense to people? Yeah? So you should engage in some kind of debate. You're both searching for the same thing. So then you come to some understanding of each other's views. This brings people together. This is lovely. Yeah? So what would be the opposite of bringing yourself up, praising yourself up, and putting others down? If you habituate that, then you won't get close to this. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I was going to ask, but it sounds like a good idea anyway in a sort of practical way, and that's, you sort of answered that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This should at some point feel like, if I do enough of this, if I do enough of humbling myself and understanding, do I really know what I'm talking about? Do I know what I'm doing to help this world? And am I sharing that? That's good. Yeah, you could be proud of that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be proud of it. Yeah? But is there any flavor of desire here for me to gain something, to get something? That's particularly hard sitting over here. This is a terrible job. You know, like sitting here having to share information with you. Of course I want to go. This is lovely. Look at all the flowers. It's lovely. Yeah. So I met the Dalai Lama. Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned I met the Dalai Lama. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard because the human nature, our nature, the thing we're born into here, tends to let us grasp at this idea of me, self, me and mine. And we think that's how we get things around here, by grabbing them. And that's the opposite of how we get things here. So this is turning us against the tide like salmon going upstream. Yeah? And turning us against the tide that we've been pushed down here and going, no, the way to really get realizations, at least this one, is to not put others down so I can gain, not to grab that for myself, not to push somebody off and go, hey, I'm over here. It's the opposite of that. Yeah, so that's the first vow. Whew. Here we go.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
What if you're like not praising yourself? Question. So there's a lot of people that get out of religion, some religion, right? And then after that, they start speaking badly about it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean they're not praising themselves? They just disagree with a certain religion, and
Good question.
which is like the highest.
So I'll answer a couple of ways, right? You can break this vow by either praising yourself or putting down others. If it's a lie, if it's not true. Okay, if you see somebody harming somebody, your job is to stop that harm. If you really see it as that way, if you understand it. If there's any nature here of desire for gain or adoration of someone, obviously you need to check yourself. Yeah? What good will come from putting down another practice? Do you really know that other practice doesn't work? Are you certain about that? Are you certain it's not working for that other person? If you check yourself and you're certain that it's some kind of horrible addiction, then there's ways to engage with that. But putting them down will not break this vow just naturally. But the habit will cause you a negative karma. Like it will cause you a negative effect by putting down people willy-nilly if you have that habit. Looking for the divine, looking for the purpose, looking for that, understanding that paths have no nature, but that beings that engage in that path that will produce the nature. Understanding the emptiness of the path at whatever level you have, and then allowing that to emerge through using logic and common perceptions. That's another story. It's not so black and white. Does that help?
So what if you're delusional? Like what if, you're thinking that you're doing a good thing? Like false teachers. Sorry, I'm asking.
No, it's true. You need to ask these questions. I also just want to get through the vows.
Sorry.
No, but it's an important question. Okay, there's a couple of ways to answer that. Number one, if you do not have the vow, you don't break a vow. Okay, so if you haven't gone through the whole ceremony, which we did last class, etc., and you have the vows, and your state of mind was correct, and the vows formed in your stream of consciousness, if you haven't done all that thing, then you could do this stuff and you're not breaking any vows. Does that make sense? So that's in regards to the Bodhisattva vows. As an action, a natural action in the world, it will give you a result. Every action will give you a result. Every mind action will give you a result. Every verbal and every physical action will give you a result. So if you are delusional and there is some part of you that understands that something is not mixing here, that is the perceiver of your action. That will produce a similar result. Okay? I hope that did that. Good. Whew. Not where are we? I just want to make sure I cover everything I can. So it mainly refers to a Mahayana person, the first one and the second one. The first one. It really has to be some kind of evil intent here. We're talking about a really big deal negative energies. Like, you know you're lying, you know they're a good teacher, or you know that they're sharing some good information, and because you're overcome with this revolting desire to have things for yourself, you are aware of that, and then you go ahead and say, no, don't listen to them, they're terrible teachers. No, you should listen to me because blah, blah, blah. And you're aware of it. That's the kind of power it needs. On top of that, it needs this thing called the four attitudes, which we'll cover at the end of class. Not giving someone Dharma teachings or material assistance. Okay, the two qualities of the person, either not receiving Dharma or material assistance. So let's talk a little bit about the nature of the person, right? Number one, you have to be asked directly. To break this vow, you have to be asked directly. Somebody comes to you, specifically you, and they have a serious problem, a monumental problem that's like almost life and death. Serious. And you're their only option. They don't have any other options, etc., etc., etc. The only option. To break this vow, you are aware that you're the only option, aware that they're in some extreme form of suffering. B, or C, you have what they want. Like, you either have the realization they're asking for, or the knowledge that they're asking for you to share the Dharma, or you have the material, you have abundance of the material goods that they're asking for you. So you break this vow if you have all those things, and then with some desire to not share all the abundance of the stuff you have, to, like, you can do without it, but because you don't want to, and you know that they're suffering, and this is the last chance, because of some evil and horrible and terrible state, you say no to their face with some kind of these four attitudes, which I'll talk later, one of which is this kind of joy of going, yeah. So it's like a monumental, cardinal, crappy attitude. I can't imagine any of you in here having this kind of heightened thing. That is breaking the vow, if you have the vow. But of course, the attitude in general of not wanting to share over time is what leads to breaking this kind of vow. And when you get more and more advanced at your practice, whether it's a practice of meditator or any kind of other practice, you will get to some subtle energies and subtle perceptions of your world. And these things become very important because you're feeling a very subtle sense of awareness around the world and what you have to give and etc. Yeah, so building up the habit of the opposite of this is important for later on in your practice. Whew. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything, especially attachment, stinginess. You have what they want. You know that you're the last resort, and you don't want to part with it because you're a horrible creature. Not that one. Okay. So just so you understand, the number over there is 2 vows for the third vow. So we've gotten a list of 18 root vows, which is what we're going to cover now. But the way it's split up, for those of you that are practicing Bodhisattva activities, they actually split up into 2 activities with the same motivation. The same with the previous 2 vows. There were 2 activities per each motivation. Yeah. So the motivation here is this desire to hurt another. And the vow specifically is failing to accept somebody's apology or striking another person. So this is, you really want to harm the other person that's come to you with a sincere apology. You've had some kind of encounter. Your job is to help every living being, right? Get free of suffering. That's your job now. If you chose the Bodhisattva track, which is the only way to get enlightened, is your job is to help every living being. So here comes a being that you've had some kind of disagreement with, yeah? Rightly or wrongly, you've had some kind of disagreement with them. And they see the error of their ways, or something like that, and they come to you and sincerely, and you are perceiving that they are sincerely and honestly apologizing and saying, you know, that whole thing that happened, I am so sorry. Like there's something that went wrong, I want to work things out with you. We might not be best friends, but you know, we're on the planet. Something sincere apology, and you understand it's heartfelt, okay? With the malice in your heart, you look at them and go, no! And that's when you break this vow, yeah? So I can't imagine any of you doing that. The other one, the second part, the one to strike another is if you incarcerate them or hurt them or physically harm them after a prolonged period of anger buildup. So remember I told you this last week, it's not a spontaneous, overwhelming reaction. It's not that. It's a premeditated, calculated, evil, disgusting, how am I going to get him? You know, like you built it over time and you let the anger rise and rise and rise and rise over a period of time, and then you do something to physically harm them. You can lock them up, you can smash them, you can hit them, whatever. It's this kind of build-up that breaks this vow. Plus it's got to have those four attitudes. So you refuse their apology, you let the anger stay. It's either or both, just like that previous vow. You still want to hang on to your anger, and or you might not let them explain themselves. Yeah. So then, like, please, can I talk to you about it? No. You know, but no. Okay. Any questions on that one?
What's the illustration?
They come from a set. I decided to do a bunch of naked people. No, because we're sort of undressing ourselves.
Oh, they're naked? I didn't know.
Yeah, some of them are naked. No, these are the inside of their guts and so on. This is from
super naked.
super naked, more naked than normal. This is from medical tanka paintings from Tibet. So there's a whole series of study in Tibetan Buddhism to do with medicine, Tibetan medicine, and these are the tankas that go with instructions with those medicines and so on. There's a whole bunch of tanka paintings with the herbs and what to do with them, and this is a whole series on anatomy. So
Just for fun, right?
it's just for fun, nothing to do with the vows, other than the metaphor that we are digging deep into the guts of who we are. Yeah.
He's got great hair though.
Yeah, I know, right? He's thinning a little.
Just like us.
Yeah. So that's vow number 3. Comes in 2 flavors. It's the main motivation is decide to hate another, but you can do it in 2 acts, right? So not accepting somebody's apology or striking another. The next one is giving up the greater way and or teaching false dharma. Again, it's either or. What's rejecting the greater way for those of you who have done some study? Hi.
Sorry, can I ask a question about number 3?
Sure.
Is it possible to not accept somebody's apology because you're trying to help them?
Mm-hmm.
And so does that not break because your motivation?
Well, if your motivation is not to hurt them, then you haven't broken this vow. Yeah. Now, if you, for example, let's take a real example. Somebody repeatedly does some habit around you that is harmful to them and you. Yeah, and it's obvious and it's clear. And then they come back for the 10th time to apologize, and you know they're going to do it again. And you might have to pretend to say, "Oh, no, it's not worth it anymore. You can't apologize anymore." You either change the way and you put on this hard thing. If your motivation is that's the only resort you got left, that's the opposite of breaking this vow. That's actually putting yourself in some kind of torture in order to help them. Yeah, if it hurts you. So if you know it's not gonna, if it's not your intent to hurt them, then it's not breaking this vow. That's pretty clear. But then you have to be so self-aware about how close you are coming to this, because all these vows and vows in general present the opportunity for us to trick ourselves to think we know what we're doing. And then over time, our own habits keep coming back and they sneak in and you come close. And it's nasty when you see that about yourself. Yeah? And you'll get a sense of that in the more advanced vows as well. The secondary vows are a little bit more fuzzy. Yeah? The secondary vows, pledges. And so you come close to them. This is a presentation of actions within these frameworks that you do or do not do in order for you to know yourself, in order for you to generate enough virtue. But for some people, it's no problem to accept somebody's apology. For other people, it's really difficult. So then that's where you have to work the most. Yeah? And for some people, we trick ourselves easily. I mean, I know I come close so often, you know, to going, I can interpret that way or that way. Really, there's some sense of nastiness in me that's sort of stubbornly not wanting to accept, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking, no, but I'm having a valid awareness, a valid cognition. This is a repeated pattern. This is my evidence. So then if you're not sure, I'd say err on the side of caution and trust that these will give you a result. Yeah? That's my advice, because it's the way I practice them. Mm-hmm. So that's a good question. And like I said at the beginning, these things are, if you do this well, if you keep them holy, if you keep them perfectly, as perfect as you can, it's hard to break them. But then if you do them really sweetly and really make an effort for a sustained period of time, you can't stop the result from your consciousness. You escalate. My experience is you escalate in your level of awareness around the world that you're living in. It looks different after you've forced your mind and squeezed it through this filter. Yeah? So, and they are for that. They are for you to practice. And then many people, after many beings that take these vows, then come to realize and either take ordination vows, become monks and nuns, and do some kind of deeper vow system because they've seen the results. All these things. But this is, I mean, the Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama, at the end of the talk, the public talk, he said, okay, I finished now, I go away, all the problems remain with you. You know, like I've given you, I've done all the things that, I've told you all the things I know, but you guys have your things to deal with, you know, like, bye-bye, he went bye-bye. It was lovely, you know. It's like, okay, I told you what I know, but you still got to work them. These are yours. These are not somebody else's. Nobody's watching when you come to the edge of your mental block and spiritual block. It's just you. And anyway, blah, 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 Hector. Giving up the greater way is, what's the greater way? Mahayana teaching. What's Mahayana teaching?
Greater way.
To save everything.
Same joke as last
Peter.
That's a habit, right?
It's a habit.
It
Yeah.
literally means the greater way. The highest path of Buddhism, where you're trying to get everyone and yourself enlightened at the same time.
There we go. Beautiful. So it's being a Bodhisattva, right? It's the path that teaches that. Okay. So it's about giving up the greater way. This is rejecting the idea of emptiness and rejecting the idea of the Bodhisattva activities. This is giving up the greater way. Purposely aware, cognizant, and saying the Buddha didn't teach that. That won't get you enlightened. There's no such thing as that, and there's no such thing as that. That would be breaking this vow with the motivation that's rooted in ignorance. The second part, teaching false Dharma, is the essence of that is you know that what you're saying is made up. Okay? So you know what it should be. So if somebody asks you how to meditate, and so you're saying, oh, to meditate on Tonglen, which is one of the greater way practices, you know, you should really do a headstand. You know, like, and you know how to do a Tonglen practice, right? You should do some kind, and you make up some idea, you like that you've made it up, you're like, I'm so clever, because I've just come up with some really good idea. And the person that you're teaching and sharing it to is already in the greater way, is already working for the sake of other beings. And because of what you did with them, they turn to Hinayana. They say, oh, that path doesn't work. So then they turn to Hinayana. And when you have experienced that and saw that chain of event, then you've broken this vow. Obviously hard to do unless you're really proud, yeah? And you like making up stuff. And you know that you're lying, and etc., 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 yeah? So, what would it be like to keep this vow? What would be the opposite of breaking it? Because we've got to be thinking about that.
Encouraging people to see that, to understand karma a little bit better, because that will also lead you to understand dependent arising, which will also lead you to understand emptiness. If people could just on a common level, on the level that they're at, see that action A produces, this B. So,
So you're saying sticking to the Buddhist teachings?
Yes.
Good. That would be keeping up the greater way, particularly those that say, in order for you to be free, you have to at least activate the impulse to get others free. Yeah.
Well, it's very, very difficult to, and I don't even know if you should mention emptiness or sunyata to anybody that's not on a pretty high level, because it's something very difficult to understand.
We'll come up to a vow that talks just about that. And I think you've hit on something, but I'll give you what it would be like to discuss that in a vow context. But there's nothing wrong with teaching people emptiness. I mean, the Buddha taught emptiness. It's about how we teach it. We'll come to that one in a vow. But to say that these whole emptiness teachings don't exist, the Buddha never taught them, and you can't get enlightened by freeing everybody, that's giving up the greater way. Teaching false Dharma is making up stuff, really loving that you're making up this stuff, and so on. So to do the opposite would be to
actually study emptiness and
to actually know what you're talking about. Exactly. Study what's actually there, know what you're talking about, share what you understand. It's particularly difficult for me because I've got to make sure that I don't cross the line of, am I making up stuff or am I sharing stuff that I know for sure? So my job here is to pass on what I was taught by my holy teacher, who I know for certain through evidence and experience has stuck to the lore of his teachings.
So question, but are your own realizations part of your path? And for that they are true, right? They're true for you. They're Dharma for you, real, pure Dharma.
But I'm not sitting here going, when I had that experience with the yelling boss that I share, I'm not saying that that the Buddha said that.
Right, you're saying
this is my experience. And in fact, at the very end of the Vinaya, which is the whole code of conduct, it is said you must keep these ideas and put them in context with your time. So it says, yes, follow these rules. This will liberate you, but you must communicate them and put them in context with your time.
That's the PowerPoint. That's why you're using PowerPoint.
That's why I'm using PowerPoint. It's actually Keynote because we're a little bit further along.
I apologize.
A little bit more advanced. Yeah. So what I'm trying to get in your hearts, if it's possible, is that these are not restricting things. Is you understand that if you deliberately, out of your way, with some kind of opposite with what you're vowing to do, go and hurt other people or want to keep stuff private and secret and are out there to hurt people, then these vows get broken. And one of the consequences of breaking this vow is that you don't get to the first Bodhisattva bhumi, which for those of you who understand the first Bodhisattva bhumi is
experiencing emptiness.
The direct perception of emptiness. That's the first Bodhisattva bhumi. Yeah? So that
you don't get to it in this life.
It says it prevents you from seeing that in this life as a Bodhisattva. Okay? Because the first Bodhisattva bhumi is the direct perception of emptiness, the path of seeing with bodhicitta in your heart. So Jason Kappa says that it prevents you from having that experience in this lifetime. It doesn't say that you can't see emptiness. It says you can't see it with bodhicitta, right? Difference.
So you can see emptiness in this lifetime?
It doesn't say you can't.
It doesn't say.
But it also says that if you've got any great virtue, a storehouse of virtue that is getting you close to having the direct perception of emptiness, that karma gets frozen. And that you can't meet teachers in this. You can't advance that karma. It's like it freezes that karma. There are other sutras that say much worse, but Tsongkhapa doesn't elaborate on those. He just mentions other sutras, and when Geshe Maga went and looked at the other sutras, they were pretty horrible. Says he completely burns any good karma for you to ever see. You know, it's like really scary, but he doesn't mention it.
Do you need to take bodhicitta to see emptiness, or does it help?
A good question, right? So what's the answer?
No.
No.
You can see emptiness without bodhicitta, but if you're on the Mahayana track,
it helps.
Well, this is what it's like to be a bodhisattva. You enter a bodhisattva bhumi, you have the direct perception of the nature of reality in deep meditation with your mind. They say like tea in water, colored with bodhicitta, yeah, and then that whole experience produces a Buddha rather than nirvana, yeah. The big difference. We got talking. Okay, from the Sutra and the Essence of Space, vow number 5, which has 3 parts, is stealing what belongs to the 3 jewels. And this is, so what are the 3 jewels? Obviously, I have to put them up there, right? Yeah, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Jewel. Okay. So this is specific to, you go into a center like this, or into a monastery, and deliberately, yeah, with what's a klesha? A mental affliction, right? A strong mental affliction. Yeah, you want to appropriate the Buddha statue, the tankas, the books.
The donation box.
Yeah, the donation box. Yeah, and you go and take whatever belongs to the Sangha there, or anything that belongs to the group of where the Sangha here. You go with this klesha and you appropriate it for your own good. And when you've grabbed it and put it in your bag and said, "This is mine," that's when you've broken this vow. Interestingly enough, he says that if you are stealing it to give it away to others, it doesn't break the vow, okay? So if your intention isn't to keep it for yourself, yeah, then you're not breaking this vow. If you're like, but then there's another vow that contradicts that one, which is supposed to pitch you in a state of somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
What if?
Okay, let's go. I love it. The lawyer. Okay.
You take it for somebody
Yeah.
and give it to them, knowing that they're going to give something back to you in return later. Not specifically for that, but as a gift.
Yes, you're in law, right? Yeah. David, would you like to help me with the other lawyer and rebuttal? No.
There's no mine. It's mine.
So, if you don't say it's mine like that, you didn't break it. But let me say this: like I said to Julia, you have to have the vow to break it. Yeah. So if you don't have the vow, then it's a mute point, yeah? But what is the karma of going into a place, secretly taking something? Like what would be the result of that? If you're aware you're doing that, and karma is what you've witnessed multiplied by times many every day. You must experience the similar result. You're going to get that result. If you vow not to do it, and then do it, or come close to doing it, you might not break the vow, but you're going to get some really crappy result, which you don't want. Your point is, get free from suffering. Like, why would you do that, right?
I was just saying that because you said there was a loophole. So.
Yeah. There's a loophole. There's always a loophole.
What if you're borrowing it? Knowing that you're going to borrow it, exactly when you're going to.
So here's a question. This is where you can do some beautiful things. If you know that you're transgressing somebody else's privacy, some of the basic pratimoksha vows are no stealing. Like that's basic. That's our First thing. If you know there's a part of you naming this stealing, then you're screwed. I mean, not that somebody's watching and recording, like you're screwed for you. So maybe what the action that you're trying to do, borrow it and return it, like what was it in Amelie where they sent the gnome around the world and took photographs, right? Maybe if it's to bring some kind of joy and love to the center that you're perceiving that everybody's tired, and then all of a sudden some Karpa is in Tibet and sending postcards, maybe, you know, but you'd have to know what you're doing. I'm not suggesting you do that. Oh, moving on. Giving up the highest Dharma, which was the listeners, the self-made Buddhists and the Mahayanas. Giving up the highest Dharma. What are the listeners? Where am I up to? 6.
They're a lot, you know. They're Hinayana.
Mostly Hinayana, right? Yeah. These are beings that can hear the Mahayana teachings but can't put them into practice. But basically people that practice, beings that practice the 4 aerial truths, the basics of the Buddhist teaching, right? Breaking this vow is saying that practice cannot free you from suffering. Yeah? Saying that entire path doesn't result in freedom. And that's a lie, that's not true. The Buddha taught that as a path. It will lead you to freedom. It will take a bloody long time. Yeah? But it will lead you to freedom. So to knowingly do that and try and convince people otherwise, then you're breaking this one. What are the self-made Buddhas?
Aryas?
No.
No.
They are neither Buddhas nor self-made. I taught that last week.
I don't know.
They appear in the world. Oh, please go.
No, I don't know anything. I was just saying people who appear not to have had teachers in this life, but have achieved enlightenment in this.
Or a high spiritual state. Yeah, so they're not Buddhas. They just achieved some high spiritual state in a body in this world and appear not to have had teachers. Now the answer is you can't ever get that without a teacher, so they must have had a teacher in some other previous incarnation or something like that. So in relation to what it means here is grabbing the entire path of what they call self-made Buddhas, which is predominantly the teachings on dependent origination, a bunch of what His Holiness taught before or during the Heart Sutra teaching this weekend. And saying that path, understanding causation, the dependent origination, understanding that with the basis of Buddhist training does not get you free from suffering. And that's not true either. The Buddha taught dependent origination and it will let you out of suffering. Mm-hmm. And lastly it says Mahayana. So what's that?
The highest Dharma.
That was Peter's joke. So, so it's saying the Bodhisattva path, this higher track, yeah, they're taking care of every living being, won't get. It's saying that whole path, the Buddha never taught it, it's not true, won't get you out of suffering, yeah, and actively going in there with some kind of ignorance in your mind, that breaks this vow. Where are we up to? Vow number 7. Taking away the golden robes, yeah, or taking the golden robes away. And this is hurting, incarcerating, beating, removing, forcing the removal of clothing from an ordained person, yeah, which means in your mind you see that here is a being who has devoted their life to some kind of special spiritual practice, and because of some power that you have now, you decided that it would be a really good idea, motivated with the aim to hurt them, to humiliate them and remove this from them, incarcerate them, like physically removing or harming them. And the second part is to actually force them to lose their vows or to give up their vows. So you know that they've committed some kind of vowed morality, and then you as a person observe yourself doing some action with them with the aim to hurt them that gives you the perception that they have lost their vows. Mm-hmm. Now, it'll come later, but many of these vows were put in place for higher practitioners. Higher, I don't mean as in status, but heads of state, kings and queens. The more that those kind of people got involved, some of the tantric vows are designed to practice a way taught by the Buddha by these busy people that control large masses of land and people and beings. And so you will find a series of vows here that you say, well, I'll never rule a kingdom and I'll never be able to do that. But you got to think about, well, how close do I come to that? Yeah, so obviously there's no way that I can conceive of myself forcing somebody out of malice to get rid of their ordination. I can't imagine that, right? So one of the practices to keep these vows in your heart is to review them 6 times a day. So how do you do that? So when I come to this vow, you rotate them, right? So you rotate like 6 a day or something, and get to the next 6, the next 6. When I get to this one, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. I don't even hang out with monks except Geshe Tashi Dorje. Yeah? But did I mention got me to meet the Dalai Lama? Like, did I mention? Yeah.
I saw a picture.
You saw a picture? Oh, yeah, good, good.
He was all over the papers.
Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you? So for me, it's being aware of the subtle liking and disliking I have around ordained people, and not just of Buddhist practice, any person of any vow, anything. Out of all the possible things you can do on the planet, imagine having the wish to help everybody else and then saying, I'm going to make a pledge that for the rest of my life I'm going to work to that goal. That already eliminates 99.999% of the world. Yeah? And then I'm going to keep that pledge pure and perfect. And I'm going to put these clothes on me to remind myself. Yeah, and then Hector comes along and goes, right? Like that's pretty nasty. That's horrific, right? So unlikely. But then there are subtle states of mind that you go with judgment towards beings of the robes you like and the robes you don't like. And that tells me whether I've got the potential to ever come here, to ever come to this, breaking this vow. And that's a way to practice those vows that seem so far removed from us. If you practice these well, if we practice these well, you should find yourself in some kind of future life, in this life, or some future life, ruling kingdoms or having power to influence a bunch of people. And then this will become important. Yep. The state of mind that you're creating is what stays with you.
Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah.
Could another subtle way of breaking the vow be, let's say one of your fellow practitioners, you see them break, you know they took a certain amount of vows and you see them breaking the vows all the time. By you thinking, noticing that in your mind and maybe judging them or something, is that a subtle way of?
There's no subtle way to break the vow. It's very legal. You break it or you don't break it. You must have the 4 states of mind that I'll mention at the end of class among all these vows except for vow 9 and 18. Yeah? You must have these 4 things happening simultaneously. So that already is really hard. And B, as you can see, you must have some kind of malice or overcome with jealousy or intent to hurt them. And, yeah? Not validly understanding and saying, I see that behavior not being congruent. There's no problem with that. If you know that what you're doing is not true, yeah, then that's a problem. Yeah? If you know that you're enjoying the putting down of them or they're not really a monk, etc. If you're enjoying that flavor, you're definitely not breaking the vow. But are you building the habit? Only you know your motivation. Yeah, the motivation here is to hurt them. Is that the core of your motivation? Or is your core motivation to understand and keep yours pure? And this dance between what's really clear and obvious in shared reality and then what's appearing to your private reality, this dance, like the Heart Sutra that we learned on the weekend, you know, it's like emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form. There's nothing left. It's either this or nothing. Slipping somewhere in between that is the infinity of space. So these are pitching you in that sense. The shared reality that you see, is that ordained person keeping their vows, yes or no? Yeah? Mm-hmm. And then your private experience of them, somewhere in between those 2 things that seem so real, is the immensity of reality. So being aware of that, I mean, pitching you in that space is what forces you to practice. Yeah?
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Keep asking questions, I'm inspired. No.
It's like you just met the Dalai Lama.
I know, right? No. Did I mention I actually met the Dalai Lama on the week? I know.
Don't let go to your head.
Pics or it didn't happen.
Huh?
Pics or it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Yeah.
I remember this guy. He would bring all the time some very cute girls to a Buddhist monastery, and he said he would test the monks.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Is that breaking the vow?
Okay.
Breaking the law.
And he said
mean. That's just mean.
That's just mean.
No,
well, this is interesting. You know, like, is it really? I don't know his experience, right? Like, I really.
What do you mean you would test them?
I don't know. It was not. It's someone.
Like just to parade a lovely girl, I'm assuming.
Monastery, and the guy said it was to help them to get some Dharma, but he said he would test the monks and.
Like he wanted to see the reaction or something.
And he said that he wanted also to help those girls to get some Dharma, but it was strange, and I was wondering a few times if he was.
So my answer is, if he's got the vows, it depends on his motivation, right? So if he's definitely playing in dangerous territory because it's not black and white, okay? I don't know his motivation. The guy could already be a Bodhisattva, and he might know 2 and 3 monks there who are very naughty. Like my first experience of going to Nepal was I would hang out, it was 2008, I would hang out with one kid who opened a DVD shop. It was his own private shop, and he was trying to sell DVDs so he could save up money so he could move to the West. He was learning English like crazy. So I would sit with him and teach him some English. And then here I am a committed practitioner of this path. Like my life is committed to this path. So my mind is see every monk as the representation of what I can become. Yeah. So really make efforts. But then my reality is I'm always supporting my wish, right? So then it was 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, monastery shut down, the shop shut down, and I'm sitting there with my friend who's got his DVD shop door half open. And then it was 11 o'clock at night and 2 young monks come. I'm like, shouldn't you be in bed? It's lockdown time, right? And so they go, oh, can we have the DVDs? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he goes behind the counter and picks up 2 DVDs, and they're titty DVDs. And he gives them to these monks. I'm like, what the hell's that? Like it completely destroyed, you know, my whole perfect image of all the lovely devout monks. You know, who are kids forced to be in the monastery from the age of 3, and then at 18, of course, they're going to have urges. Yeah? Now, what they do with those urges is how good they studied. Yeah? So, was this guy helping them, or was this guy hurting them? Should I do nothing about them? I can't tell what's going on. So, I have to err on the side of caution for my practice and act on what I see is true, and maintain a space of skepticism and openness that maybe something's very special, and maybe they are using this for Dakini practices that I don't understand or something, you know? And I'm wishing that they find their path. I mean, that's all I can do. Would I do that? I wouldn't, for me. You know? Would I take a bunch of sexy girls over to a monastery? Not sure, don't think so. But maybe at some point in the path, you come to a valid realization that you need to take a Dakini, beautiful being, as an offering to your Lama in a monastery. Maybe you do that, I don't know. But you never know. You got to know what you do. Yeah.
Also, for what I read, to actually like to the downfall, to the vow be totally broken, you have to see the result of that broken. You have to see the ordained person
remove them.
Yeah, like basically see them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might not be watching your vow, but it hasn't been broken in its entirety.
So, like I keep saying, to that answer and that answer, A, you've got to have the vow to break it. Otherwise, it's just a shitty activity on the planet that will give you a crappy result. You know, like it will be a bad result. The reason they make such a big deal about breaking Bodhisattva vows is because this is a vowed morality that should propel you out of suffering. So when you vow it, the power of that thing is like an atomic bomb. You screw with that and you can have all sorts of weird effects. So it becomes extremely important to treat it as if it's about to blow up at any moment. Yeah? So the only way you know whether you're going to break it or not is to study them. And I'm only giving you a flavor of them. You go to the website, download the notes, and then you'll see for each one of the vows, if you take them or if you want to practice them, what's coming close and what's not coming close. I've got 5 minutes to cover the rest of the vows. No time for questions for now. We'll do it after the break. Doing any of the 5 immediate misdeeds. Do you remember these? We learned them in Karma course. Remember those?
Yeah.
The 5 immediate and the 5 close to immediate. And this means killing your mother, killing your father, killing an ahar. What's an ahar?
Somebody that's enlightened.
Someone that's
In
achieved nirvana. Good. Split in the sangha or cause a schism. This is referring particularly to this schism. We can't do this one or the next one. Yeah. Schism of the sangha of the Buddha of this eon. And drawing blood. Obviously, you can get close to these things. Yeah? I mean, obviously, I'm confessing now. As a child, I used to sit, when I used to believe that God could help me, my mum would hit me or do something bad, and I would go to my room and I'd pray, please kill her. I swear, it was such a nasty. Yeah. And no, it was a horrible feeling, because then after the anger went away, after everything's nice or whatever, and then she cooked me a meal or something like mothers do, yeah, or made me clothes or whatever, I would be overcome with remorse and quickly go and ask God to please don't do the last instruction. As if I had some command of God, please don't kill her, please don't.
Abort mission.
And this is the hardest one, I think. This is the hardest one. Out of all the Bodhisattva vows, it's probably the most dangerous and the hardest one. This and 18, okay? Because unlike the others, you don't need the 4 conditions for this one to occur. You need a sustained awareness that you really understand the idea of karma, meaning that every action you do will have a consequence, even if you do it in private. And you choose to reject it and say, no, that's not true, I can do anything I want. And it will not have a result. So I could stab somebody or I could steal and I'm immune from the result. Or you deny the continuum of being, or the idea of past and future life. Yeah?
But the way I understand it, has to be a complete and total denial. It's not like
exactly.
Another day they well maybe not.
Yeah, no, and there's a specific type of person. It's not a feeling person. It's an intellectual. It's someone that's got an understanding. It's quite heavy.
Yeah.
But out of all of them, why would this one be like the worst one?
Because it's easy to do.
Well, if you have this one, you don't care about all the others. Like you don't think that there'd be an effect of breaking any other vows. Yeah, so you say, oh, I can do anything I want and it won't have an effect. Then you can go ahead and kill mothers and incarcerate monks, and you don't think that anything's going to result from that. So if you have wrong view, meaning the view that that there's no correlation between your engagement with the world and the world you're experiencing in a specific way, like they talk about breaking this one. But this is easy to generally forget because our impulse, the stream we're in, is the opposite of this. You know? We have miscorrelation between cause and effect in this one. So that's that. Let me just, in the next minute or so, quickly go through the next, because after the break I want to do the 4 forces. The 4.
Can I just say really quick, it's also if you're in denial, it's a complete, you're sort of lost in form. You're lost in the mind.
And again, I'll say, if you have the vows and you have that state of mind sustained, then you break it. If you don't have the vow, it's just a shitty experience.
It's just a shitty experience.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're talking specifically now about what it's like. So it means that if you're taking this vow, you are making a commitment to yourself. That you'll live out the rest of this life with this ideal in mind. Meaning, I have to live with the cause and effect thing. Practice it that way.
So it's a commitment.
And this is the one I was telling you about for kings and queens, etc. So this breaks into 4 different vows: destroying towns, cities, whole areas, and countries. And this is the desire to inflict pain and destruction with the 3 poisons of ignorance, desire, and aversion. Yeah. So you go and you say, that part of Manhattan, I'm going to destroy. You break this vow, if you have the vow, and then go ahead and break and destroy a town, a city, etc., etc. So obviously that's for people of capacities to do that. And Suzanne, this is teaching emptiness to those who are not yet ready.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's a specific vow that says, so the idea of emptiness is the ultimate nature of how things are. You need to study it. The more you study, they say you have to listen to it 1,000 times. I can't tell you, the first time I heard Geshe Michael teach it on stage, something came over me that was a repulsion to the idea, because it made complete sense. And it went completely against the way I was operating in the world. So I wanted to attack him, when I heard it from strange. It has a profound effect on you. And then months went past and I understood it perfectly. And then, he says one word and then you realize the abyss that you don't have a clue what he's talking about or what the Buddha talked about. And then you'll go through evolutions of understanding of emptiness where you think you've seen it, you've experienced it, and then that's just the doorway for you to realize how much more you've got to learn, yeah? And how much more you have to experience. And the whole path, if there's one point in the path to realize how you really are in the world, it's this experience, the experience of emptiness, the way it is, the realm that is. So everything, point of meditation is to get you there. The point of study is to pitch your mind in that stage in between. And first you'll get a taste for it intellectually, and then you'll get a deeper intellectual, and then you'll go into this psychosis where you think you understand, you don't understand, and the world is in the in-between stage and nothing makes sense. And if you're meditating, if you've got enough virtue, it is a possible thing to experience on this planet. And that's the point of the path. And that experience is so profound, so overwhelming, so shocking to this form that it is said it is the point at which you enter the stream out of here. Like you catch the train out, you're on the track. The train's going that way. And it's like you've got a train, but you can't fit it. You're going on the road and it doesn't continue, and you've tried it over here and this track doesn't finish, and you've found the track, and once you put it on that track, you can't get out. It'll take time to habituate, etc. This is the experience of mystics. This is the experience in many parts around the world. This is the experience of shamans. This is the experience of Buddha. This is the experience of being. This is the experience myths talk about. This is the experience. So this one, you break this vow. If you understand something about emptiness, you teach it to someone who's not really studied it. You're aware that they don't have an understanding of it. So why would you do that, right? Unless you want to show off or something, I don't know. So you're aware that this person doesn't have an understanding, and you have some cognition that it would freak them out a little. And you go ahead and teach it to them, and they already have some kind of bodhicitta, some kind of wish to help all beings. And because of what you taught them, they give up that wish and they follow some lesser path. They become afraid or freaked out. Yeah? And you've got to see that whole chain of events, and you've got to be aware that you're doing it to break this vow. One more and then we'll take a break. Turn someone back from total enlightenment. This is, you are now practicing this path. You're proficient and you're getting good at it and you understand the 6 perfections, and you see some fellow travelers that have a similar practice and you tell them that they can't get out of suffering practicing the 6 perfections. And so you convince them that there's no way out for them, it's too hard, yeah, you can't do it. And then you see them giving up that wish, giving up that path, and once you've experienced it, then you've broken this vow. Yeah, obviously you'd have to be like to do this. Bless you. Let's take a 7-minute break, and then I've got 5 more to do, and then I want to talk about those 4 things, and then we can have some question and answer. Yeah. Sorry, it's taking a little longer. Thank you, everybody. See you at 8 past 9 or 9:08. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Did you go to this?
Yeah. No way. That is recent visit. Really?
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's very good.
Happy birthday!
Yeah. So we have just seen each other. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Artist in India found these very cars.
Oh, my goodness.
Some of the I didn't even have my glass out of my window, so I could breeze and bugs and see it.
Yeah. I think I know just this space. This
I mean, like my glass out of my window. There's a tree that has like flowers there, and then these little nuts. And this is just a good time. You don't have to.
Okay.
We can bring it back.
Let me be sure.
How to make the vows interesting. I haven't seen you for an eternity, Mr. Karuna and Mrs. Karuna. How are you?
Oh, you guys busy? Yeah?
Those pictures are amazing. Those pictures are amazing. I mean, I felt it. Just looking at them, I was like...
I'm so grateful and so overwhelmed because I didn't ask you to do this.
Of course it happened though.
I didn't ask you to do it. I didn't ask you to say, can you come with me to Mrs. office? I need to talk about it. I'm trying to translate something, but I'm not going to So we sit there and he says,
They're homeboys. They're homeboys, right?
yeah, exactly. So he's like, I want to request an audience for Hector and his group to come and okay. Like, I'm in the meeting, that's what he's requesting. Okay, thank you. So he's requested for that. He said, oh, let me consider it.
This is the office.
This is the office.
Yes,
3 months.
yes.
Yeah, they're just about to move in. So then I'm like,
When you said 2 months, I thought you said originally 2 years.
I like that. That's a good year. And then the day before the teaching, they say,
So you came in on turned up.
and this is like delayed. I said, oh, yes, I said, no, it's 2 years. And then they say, but 2 of you. So I guess you're like, well, I'll take you. Hector, and guess what? And then we turn up there. The night before, they changed the teaching an hour earlier. So then they cancelled it. They said, no, you can't. So I'm sitting there. I got there at some point. They're like, oh, yeah. So I'm like, okay. So then the girls they pull back. They go, but you can see me left. Okay. And then I guess you touch it. So maybe stay between.
I understand.
Okay, you're the boss. So we turn out. She's sitting down and this body. But she's like, they go away. She'll cancel. I'm like, so you can't sit here. I mean, I didn't ask for it. I'm just sitting there, just let karma be. And then I decided to practice. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm just spectating. If this karma's here, and that being is up there, and who is this being? The only thing on the planet saying, let's all come together. Like, that being is actually here. Love me, and I'm like, you're so close. The promise is here, and I'm not doing something obviously, so I better just I decide to sit and I go to meditation space, and I'm looking at the traffic outside, and walking, getting touching everything. I get this hyper awareness of the space around me. We must all be connected. It's one karma. What's karma here? But it's consciousness, and this consciousness has its flavor that you're about to meet. So, how can this be disconnected to the single thing? It's got to be connected.
And then you wouldn't have missed that one time.
No, I wouldn't. You know, like, this starts connected. As soon as I realized I wish I could do it.
Serious? Just for the meditation, you're really
Just felt like that something happened or I got pushed into something. So I think I had to do that. I had to do that whilst I was in front of me. If I didn't do that, I would be missing which meant keeping all of you, everybody, everybody else, all the opposite present. So I sat there, all I could do was horses from the back. And all I can do is dedicate what it's going to do. Make everybody see every single one about 1,000 years. And all the other people outside. Oh my God. Maybe I was perceptually that way.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. Happy birthday. I'll tell you that before things next week. Have a look at the thing I sent. Just look. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I've never been. Yes. The structure. Yeah, I'm super happy to help. You can get some of the people finished. My pleasure. Thank you for dinner. It was nice to spend with you. How's your birthday? Yeah? I'm so sorry. It was too late for me to come. Did you have lots of visitors? Every time I get
right on Skype with her. And she's like, okay, I have some weird things to share. After dinner,
where is she?
So I guess I have to be careful not to try more.
If she's not ready, you're not ready.
Oh no.
But you can show her. Yeah, I told them. When I went back to Australia, and of course, the person I want to do is teach my So I. Yeah, they don't run. But it
what is Karma? To see my brother and his your phone.
I know.
My mom showed up coming to first teaching years after I tried. So the first time I tried, I went the secretary, CEO of the
Oh man, you look so good.
But she said
Sorry, yeah. So, what's going on? If we're ready, I'll get everybody's attention, and then you can make the announcement. I am. Because you know what you're announcing.
It's my Dharma practice. Based where? Nothing. In case you care.
I don't know how you take because I asked her to do music for
Can we grab the rest of the book? I have no time for sensitivity.
Ding, ding, ding. Rally of your parents.
Steven.
One name.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming back. The first thing I want to say is thank you for paying attention to these things that are vows, and our head tends to go into this hard space. The next thing I want to say, I have an announcement. If you all know Perez, who's over here, he's an amazing musician. You would have heard him play at Geshe Michael's teaching last February. There's a concert he's performing tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow at the Hari New York Center, or what it is, yeah. And is there any reason for the concert besides beautiful, magnificent music that you guys produce?
To help people to get enlightened.
Okay. So it starts at 8 p.m. tomorrow, and it's open donation, and it's on the 30th Street, 140 West. So there's a brochure here. Yeah. Also, I want to honor Elisa, because you are a magnificent. Welcome to the class. I am really honored to have a special choreographer that I don't know how many beautiful things there are to be said about you. Actually, I don't know enough about you. All I know is that Elisa choreographed the last performance at Geshe Michael's retreat, where many of you danced, really amazing dances, as well as running a beautiful company in New York. So I'm really honored to have someone thank you. And all you other beautiful magicians of life that are present in this space today. So let's go back to Bodhisattva vows. Vow 13. Convincing